Hello, I'm Doug Tennapel. I'm going to give you some real quick basics on storytelling structure as fast as I can. All stories have a beginning, middle, and end. All sentences have a beginning, middle, and end. And even this video has a beginning, middle, and end. Your life has a beginning, middle, and end. So I like thinking of all the stories that I tell, whether if they're a script or a graphic novel or a TV episode, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Easy, right? This is the 3-act structure. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. We use Roman numerals just to be fancy. So I mostly want to focus on the end. It's the most important part of the whole story because it's the conclusion of the whole story. And usually, it ought to make a moral statement. So start with if you're doing note cards, this would be your third note card. We're going to start with the third note card. And that is a moral statement. Things like, owning human beings because of their skin color is wrong, or being greedy is wrong, or being generous is right. Usually I like making a more positive statement at the end because it's a little funner to build that story, that statement up. It's more dramatic, I guess I should say. So giving to the poor is good, or saving animals is good, or it's good to reconnect with a distant father or something like that. So that's a moral statement. Moral statements are shoulds and oughts. You should or you ought. If you can still do a story that doesn't have a moral, but it'll just tend to be, it could just be more like just a sequence of events, and at the end of seeing those sequence of events take place, you might just go, well, big deal. So what? What was at stake? A moral statement, something's at stake. So once you figure out your end, remember, this is just the philosophical part of your story. This will all be buried. You'll barely be able to put this structure back together by the time you're seeing your great, rip-roaring, wonderful, emotional story. So this is our end, is our moral statement. Then you go back to the beginning, and you have to give your story somewhere to go. So you're going to go down, 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 down to this low point, which is the beginning. And usually you have to set up a character or a situation that is immoral, or rooted in ignorance, or rooted in some kind of slavery, that is why people will say, oh, something's wrong, and we have to get to this moral statement place. So in Jaws, the whole town is selling out the whole community because they're willing to see past these shark attacks because they don't want to close up for the weekend. The big holiday weekend. They don't want to lose money. That's kind of the beginning of this immoral statement. The sheriff is basically ignorant. He doesn't know anything about sharks. He's never been in the water. Sheriff Brody. He has to learn things. It's exhibited even in slavery in that he's so afraid of going in the water, and people make fun of him about it at the beginning. So that's all. That's the main thing, is the beginning. If you start at a low point, then you have somewhere to go across your whole story to get there. Think of all the things you have to do to properly do your work and convince your reader that it gets to this moral place. And that's why the middle, which is the second act, this big bloated section, are arguments that are made. They're made as characters and as their actions, or people's actions. So you might give counter arguments, like a famous one is in Star Wars, where Luke has the Force and Han Solo is a counter argument against that, saying, I prefer a blaster. And he's very practical. It's kind of an argument. It's on topic to the moral, or what's going to happen in that story. But think of this as maybe 3 key, a beginning, middle, end, of different characters with counter arguments. Your bad guy who's trying to stop your story from moving along and things like that. That's the second act. So that, in a nutshell, is the simplest way, the very beginnings of how I structure my stories. And I'll break each of these down more and give you more detail because it gets pretty convoluted and complex how they lead into each other. Right now, this is your beginning, middle, end. Most important one is the end, which is kind of a moral conclusion. This happened, it was accomplished. I'm Doug Tennapel. Thank you.